If you've ever live launched anything in your business, then you know it can be a pretty stressful experience. Well, I just came off of live launching a brand new offer in my business, and I can honestly tell you it was a remarkably low stress experience. So when I really started to think about, okay, what practical advice can I pass on to you so that you can experience a low stress launch, I came up with 7 different ways that I practiced self-care throughout the process. So I'm going to walk you through them right now. If you're new here, hi, I'm Michaela Bucchianeri, psychologist turned copy coach. And on this channel, I help you bring more of your in-person magic to your online presence. So if that sounds good to you, please subscribe for new videos each week. So the first way I practiced self-care was by scheduling a break for proactive rest. Now, this is not something I put in place because of the launch. It's actually a favor that past me did future me. About a year ago, I was coming off of a season of fatigue and burnout, quite frankly. And so I put in my calendar, right, you're going to take a week off of social media. You're really going to drop all your responsibilities for that week so that you can rest on purpose in preparation for whatever's coming next. I didn't know at the time that what would be coming next would be this live launch, which can be really energy intensive, really demanding. And so the timing worked out really well. But I want to be honest, this is historically not an area where I shine. I tend to really just kind of collapse into rest after all the work is done. So if you tend to struggle with that too, you really might find some benefit from scheduling some rest on purpose ahead of time. So what that looked like for me was, like I said, dropping my normal posting schedule on social media. I didn't have any meetings or deadlines or anything set up. And because I'd scheduled this so far in advance, I was able to plan ahead, budget for it, account for it so that the break itself didn't become stressful. So if you're like me and you don't tend to prioritize rest quite as much as you should, consider scheduling a break on purpose before you start your launch. The second way I took care of myself during this launch was to take a little break from alcohol. Now, this was also a choice that I'd made separate from the launch. A while back, I decided at the start of this year to take a break from drinking. Now, I enjoy a glass of wine, but it doesn't always play nicely with my nervous system. I can notice that I'm more prone to anxiety or kind of physical jitters. It also, as I've gotten older, has definitely interrupted my quality of sleep. And so it worked out really well that by the time I moved into the start of my launch, I had had 3 months off of drinking at all. Now, in addition to helping with introducing more calm into my life and improving my sleep, it also had the effect of challenging me to come up with different ways of winding down at the end of the day. So I found that in the months leading up to my launch, I was watching less TV. I was more likely to sit down at the piano and just play. I was reading books for fun. I was practicing yoga in the evenings. So all of these different habits kind of combined together to make me feel relaxed and really well supported going into the launch. So that's something to think about. Even if you don't take a break from anything or give up a habit, think about what kinds of other really nurturing habits can you introduce into your routine to help set you up for a nice, calm launch. The third way I practiced self-care going into this launch was to put myself on a low information diet. So I unfollowed or muted accounts on Instagram. I unsubscribed from YouTube channels or email lists. Really, I just quieted the noise so that I could maintain my focus on what I was working on for this launch. I found that even when there were sources of input that I really enjoyed, having them removed from kind of my field of focus really helped my message and my purpose come to the forefront. It's amazing once we give our brains the ability to just focus on one thing at a time. The clarity is so much sharper and we really feel much more connected to our purpose. So that's one thing to consider. There's often a lot of advice to unfollow accounts or sources of information that don't make you feel good. But I would argue, even if you enjoy them, there's nothing wrong with just muting someone's stories, for example, for a while, just to kind of quiet those inputs, again, so that you can stay laser focused on what you are working on. The fourth way I practiced self-care for this launch was to talk a lot about what I was working on. So depending on your personality type, that might seem totally obvious, but for me, that is just not my natural way of being. And around the time that I was planning this launch, I was doing some dabbling, some reading about human design. Any human design fans here, let me know below. I'd love to geek out with you about it. But my particular type, the manifester, just naturally keeps all of our plans really, really close, really secret. And that just feels right. And so my natural kind of default setting is to privately work away, like in my own little lab, on whatever it is that I'm working on until it's totally ready, and then I release it to the world. Well, an unintended consequence of that is that other people don't have the opportunity to know what you're up to, and by extension, join with you in that and cheer you on. And so going into this launch, I really tried to experiment with a different way of being. And so early and often, I was sharing with just about anyone who would listen what I was working on, what I was excited about, kind of what my next move was going to be, not in a marketing way, but more just in an open channel of communication. And so people in my immediate life and people online, I just shared as openly as I possibly could. And the result was that throughout the process of my launch, I felt like I had this whole team of people behind me, cheering me on, rooting for me to bring this vision that they'd been hearing about all along into reality. That's exactly what happened. So that's a little invitation to you. If you tend to be more like me and kind of squirrel all your ideas away until they're totally polished and ready to share, maybe just start sharing early. Even when they're still fully formed, it's going to get people excited, and that in turn is going to help you feel even more excited. Speaking of having a team around you, the fifth way that I took care of myself for this launch was that I outsourced. I didn't try to do it all myself. This is a continual growth opportunity for me because I tend to take on more roles than I need to, and it ends up just slowing down the process and stressing me out along the way. And so this time, I really tried to stay in my own lane as far as what I'm best at and what I needed to be doing to make the launch successful. And if there was anything that was too far outside my sweet spot of what I'm naturally good at, I tried to find someone who was an expert at it and outsource it to them. So from launch planning to building out the back-end system of my actual one-on-one offer to graphic design to video editing, I really did hand off lots of different roles within my launch. And as a result, it was just a fantastic finished product. I felt really, really good about what I was putting out there, and it was so much less stressful for me. Plus, I had this team, again, of really excited co-collaborators who were all putting the full force of their genius behind me and my launch, and it just felt really, really good. So that is my encouragement to you, is even if you're not in a position to have a permanent team assembled around you, try to think about specific roles and pieces within your launch that you really, what would feel really good to hand off, and then find someone who has made it their beeswax to become an expert at it. The sixth way I practiced self-care during this launch was to simplify my launch quite a bit, kind of on the fly. Here's what it looked like. So the original plan for my launch was to invite people into a free 3-day challenge that would walk them through the process of creating their own copy vault, a bank of words and phrases that they could use to reach more of their dream clients with their business. And at the end of that challenge, they were then moved into a sequence that would educate them and introduce them to my brand new offer, a one-on-one intensive done-for-you version of what they just learned in the challenge. So it's a done-for-you vault of your clients' words that you can take and use yourself, outsource, and put to use right away, writing everything you need to in your business. So that was the flow, that was the plan. So that actual launch portion of the plan was going to last 2 weeks. What ended up happening right as I was moving from the challenge into the launch was I got sick. there was a cold that I caught that had been moving its way through our house, and what are you going to do? It happens. But at that point, I already had so much momentum going. I already had people actively participating in the challenge. Everything was set to go that I decided to press on with the launch, but to simplify it, to make it easier for me to actually pull off. So first off, I took a look at everything that I'd planned to do during that 2-week live launching period, and I cut it in half. I was able to condense it down to just over a week while still maintaining all of the same content, still making sure I was serving and educating and hitting all the different segments of my audience so that they got everything that they needed to make a good decision about whether to opt in to this new offer I was introducing. From there, I took a look at the actual components of my launch. What was I supposed to be doing? What had I planned for myself? And I found that there were a lot of really energy-intensive live components. So I was going to be going live every single day on Instagram for 2 weeks. Even when I reduced that down to 1 week, it just didn't seem feasible. I didn't know how I was going to be feeling. It became difficult to coordinate. And so I made the decision to collapse them all into one big live, an hour-long live that I hosted here on YouTube, streamed into my community. And I did that at the end of the week so that I was able to bring my best energy and really show up as well as I could when that time came. But in the meantime, I was serving them with posts and videos that I had already pre-recorded. So I was able to really convey the same message in the same ways, but just take some of the heat off of myself. And that really helped a lot. So my encouragement to you is to really think through your launch and ask yourself, what are the main components that I have planned here? And what are some different ways I could connect with my intended audience during this launch? Because the reality is there are a lot of different ways to reach people. There are so many different ways that a launch could look. And Natasha, the launch strategist that I worked with, is very clear that it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. And at the end of the day, we're the human being at the center of all of this. So we really do need to take good care of ourselves, because whatever energy we're bringing to the launch, it's going to be transmitted to the people on the other side. And so we want to make sure that we're taking good care of ourselves so that we can communicate that message with resonance and the energy that we want to bring. So as you're looking at your launch plan, even if it looks pristine like mine did, ask yourself, are there some different contingency plans I could come up with? What's like one notch simpler I can go with this? And that might turn out to be your sweet spot, your perfect launch plan for this go around. And again, remember, this is just one launch. You're going to have many more opportunities in the future to tweak it, refine it, and make it easier for you to deliver. The final way I took care of myself during this launch was to bring more of my non-work life into my launch. So what do I mean by that? Well, in the actual challenge to help people create their own copy vault, I would normally pull in examples from my work with other business owners. I would use my clients' words to illustrate the points I was making. But this time around, I decided to share some of what I was working on. I took a passion project of mine that's unrelated to my business that I need to create a copy vault for, and I used that. So as I walked people through the challenge, I shared with them examples of what I personally was working on in my own writing. I think this made it so much more personal. I got a lot of great feedback from people that it helped them connect to the idea more and to me more, which is always a good thing, the person behind the business, right? The other thing that I did was collaborate with my video editor, Katie, on some creative ways that we could bring more of a vlog style to the challenge videos. So before we'd get down to the actual content of each day of the challenge, I'd share B-roll footage around my home and my office. I'd share kind of personal reflections along the way. And again, the feedback that I got from the people going through the launch was that it just really personalized it and made it feel much more intimate, just a conversation between me and them. So that's the external input that I got from the people going through the launch. But Personally, it also just felt so good. It feels really good to harmonize and integrate the different parts of ourselves. Projects we're working on outside of our business, our pets or our family members, any way that as you're comfortable, you can bring pieces of other parts of you to how you're showing up in your launch. It's going to humanize you, and it's also going to make you feel reconnected to the person you are, separate from the numbers and the metrics and what you're trying to do with your business. It just felt really, really good. And I just wanted to mention it. I haven't heard that shared before, but I was surprised by just how great it felt. At the end of the day, we're in this for the long haul, right? And we're not robots, we're human beings running our businesses. And so it's a really powerful choice to make, to prioritize caring for yourself, even as you're driving toward your goals in your business. It's just going to set you up to feel really well supported and cared for as you're making progress, again, for the long haul. And if you'd like to see any of what I've been talking about in action, you're very welcome to take part in my free challenge linked below. That's going to do it for now. Please give this video a like if you found it useful. And if you're new here, I'd love it if you'd subscribe and be sure to hit the bell so you'll be notified every time I upload a new video each week. Thanks so much for being here. I'm cheering you on.